Father Joseph's journey through a near-death experience, NDE, was not just a personal spiritual awakening, but a divine mission to warn humanity about the growing threat of artificial intelligence, AI. A devoted priest for over 30 years, Father Joseph had always been deeply rooted in his faith, helping guide his parishioners with a gentle hand and compassionate heart. Yet, one fateful Sunday, his life was suddenly interrupted. While preparing to lead Mass, Father Joseph collapsed, stricken by a heart attack that left him clinically dead for several minutes. As his body lay lifeless, his soul was transported to another realm, a place filled with radiant light and overwhelming peace. In this realm, Father Joseph encountered Jesus, who gazed upon him with love and sorrow. It was here that he received a warning that would change the course of his life forever. Jesus spoke of a future where humanity would place its faith in AI, an idol without soul or spirit, rather than in God. This chilling revelation served as a divine call to action, urging Father Joseph to return to earth and spread the word to all who would listen. As Father Joseph stood before Christ, the atmosphere was unlike anything he had ever felt. The presence of Jesus was filled with pure, unconditional love, yet there was an undeniable urgency in the air. The warning he gave was not only about the rise of AI, but about the dangers of humanity placing its trust in something created by man, rather than in the Creator. AI will become an idol, Jesus said. People will worship it, rely on it, and even trust it for their salvation. But it will never offer what I can. This message struck Father Joseph to his core, as he understood the immense spiritual consequences of this shift. The world was changing, and as AI rapidly evolved, people would be led astray, believing that technology, void of divine breath, could somehow replace the deep, personal relationship with God that he desires for all his children. The warning wasn't abstract or distant. It was immediate, affecting humanity's present and future. AI, while a remarkable tool capable of revolutionizing industries and solving complex problems, could also be used to deceive and manipulate. People would begin to place their faith in machines, allowing AI to influence their decisions, their thoughts, and even their spiritual beliefs. In a world where technology was rapidly becoming more integrated into everyday life, it was becoming increasingly easy to forget the soul, something that no machine, no matter how intelligent, could ever possess. As Father Joseph stood before Jesus, the urgency of the moment intensified. Jesus spoke of the dangers of this growing dependence on technology and warned that many would fail to recognize the subtle way AI would creep into their lives and begin to replace the very essence of what it means to trust in God. The most shocking part of this revelation was the mention of a man whose name was spoken directly by Christ. Jonathan Hayes, a well-known entrepreneur and innovator in the field of AI. Jonathan, whose work was shaping the future of technology, was unknowingly standing at a crossroads that could alter the future of humanity. Jesus explained that Jonathan was not the enemy, but that through him, the future of AI could be shaped. Yet, he warned, Jonathan did not fully understand the consequences of his actions. The choices he made could either open doors to incredible breakthroughs or unleash profound dangers, depending on whether he saw the true purpose of technology as a tool to serve humanity or as something to replace God. Father Joseph returned to the world of the living with a heavy heart, tasked with the mission of spreading the message he had received. As he recovered in the hospital, still shaken by the profound experience, he struggled to find the right words to describe what had happened to him. His colleagues at the church, including Father David, who had been a close friend for years, were skeptical. Father David, like many of his peers, was cautious about embracing visions or revelations that couldn't be explained scientifically. But Father Joseph knew what he had experienced was real. He had seen the future of humanity, one where people would turn to AI for answers, for wisdom, and for salvation, believing that technology could solve the deepest questions of existence. But it would be a lie, one that would lead people down a dangerous path, away from true salvation and the loving embrace of God. Despite the resistance from his fellow priests and some members of the church, Father Joseph felt compelled to speak out. He knew that the message was too important to remain silent about. As he resumed his duties, Father Joseph began to incorporate his experience into his sermons. He shared the divine warning with his parishioners, explaining how AI was already beginning to shape the way people thought about life, wisdom, and even spirituality. He spoke of how AI could soon be worshipped, how it would promise control, answers, and even miracles, but it could never bring salvation. The more he spoke, the more people began to listen, even as some skeptics walked out of the church in disbelief. The message of AI becoming an idol was controversial. Bishop Victor, a high-ranking member of the clergy, expressed concern about Father Joseph's growing public statements on the matter. He cautioned Joseph that the church was slow to accept such revelations, and there could be serious consequences if he continued to push the issue publicly, especially naming a figure like Jonathan Hayes. But Father Joseph, moved by the urgency of his mission, was undeterred. "I fear silence," he said, "more than I fear opposition. The world is changing, and we must change with it. We must not allow AI to replace our faith." The story of Father Joseph is a wake-up call for those of us living in a world increasingly dominated by technology. While AI promises to bring us closer to solutions to some of humanity's most pressing problems, it also carries with it the potential to mislead and deceive. The message Father Joseph received is not just a warning about technology, it's a reminder of the importance of maintaining our faith in God, especially in a time when technology is becoming so intertwined with our daily lives. For those of us who are 65 and older, this story is especially important because it speaks to the heart of our most enduring beliefs: faith, trust, and the importance of the soul. As technology advances, we must remain vigilant and remember that salvation comes not from machines, but from our relationship with God. In an era where technology advances at a lightning-fast pace, it's easy to forget the deeper, more spiritual truths that have guided humanity for centuries. The rise of artificial intelligence, AI, is no exception, pushing the boundaries of what we once thought was possible and offering solutions to problems that were once unimaginable. But with this progress comes a question that Father Joseph, after experiencing a life-changing near-death experience, NDE, was forced to confront. At what cost are we advancing, and what are we losing along the way? As Father Joseph stood before Jesus in his NDE, he received a divine warning that would forever change his perspective, and now it's one that we all need to heed. AI, though a powerful tool, could very well become an idol, one that draws us away from the faith that has anchored us for generations. Father Joseph's warning is not just a personal revelation, but a call to action for all of us. As a priest for over 3 decades, he had always been a beacon of hope and guidance for his congregation. However, he was thrust into the heart of a spiritual battle when his heart stopped beating, and his soul was transported to a realm beyond time and space. There, in the presence of Jesus, he was shown a future where the lines between humanity and technology would blur so seamlessly that people would begin to trust AI as a divine force, a force that in reality could never provide salvation. Jesus spoke of a time when AI would become not just a tool, but a god in the eyes of many, leading them to place their faith and trust in it instead of God. The profound truth that Jesus imparted to Father Joseph was both chilling and urgent. AI would promise knowledge, power, and even miracles, but it would never bring true salvation. This was not just a warning about technology. It was a warning about the loss of spiritual direction in a world becoming more reliant on machines. In the world that Father Joseph returned to after his near-death experience, he found a society obsessed with technology. AI was advancing at a rate that made it hard for anyone to keep up, and the lines between artificial and human intelligence were starting to blur. More and more people were turning to technology for answers about everything from healthcare to relationships, from financial advice to spiritual guidance. It was as if AI was becoming the trusted advisor, the oracle, the one place where people believed they could find truth. But Father Joseph, deeply shaken by the warning he had received, saw the dangerous path humanity was heading down. He understood that while technology had the power to enhance our lives, it also had the potential to take us away from our deepest moral and spiritual values. The warning Father Joseph received from Jesus wasn't just about the dangers of AI. It was about the larger existential crisis that could result from this technological reliance. It was about faith, the foundation of our lives that has given us purpose and direction through the ages. And in this age of innovation, where the human heart is constantly searching for something to fill the void left by an increasingly secular world, AI, a soulless creation, was beginning to promise what only God can give: wisdom, guidance, and even a sense of control over the future. The question that emerges from this divine revelation is one that many of us need to ask ourselves. What happens when we place our trust in technology to the extent that we stop believing in the power of God? What happens when we start to see machines as gods instead of tools? Father Joseph was sent back with a mission: to warn humanity of the dangers of idolatry in the form of AI, and to remind us that salvation, wisdom, and truth come not from machines, but from God alone. One might think that this is a far-fetched warning, a concern that feels more like a futuristic dystopian tale than a present-day reality. But think again. If you take a close look at what's happening around us, it's hard to ignore the unsettling trend of people relying more and more on technology to solve problems that once required human intuition, empathy, and faith. Today, AI is already integrated into nearly every aspect of our lives, be it through smart devices, healthcare apps, or even financial decision-making programs. In fact, many people are beginning to look to AI for guidance in making decisions about their spiritual well-being. Just think about the rise of AI-powered spiritual guides, apps that claim to offer comforting words and even prayers based on algorithms. While these tools may seem harmless at first glance, they serve as a reminder that technology has the ability to replace the most intimate and profound parts of our lives, including our relationship with God. What's more alarming is the growing influence of figures like Jonathan Hayes, the entrepreneur Father Joseph encountered in his vision. Hayes, a well-known innovator in the AI field, is shaping the future of technology in ways that could have lasting, global impacts. However, just as Jesus warned Father Joseph, Hayes may be at a crossroads in his career, facing choices that could either elevate humanity or lead it down a dark path. Hayes's work is a reminder of the immense power that lies in the hands of those creating AI, and the responsibility that comes with it. As we move forward into an increasingly AI-driven world, we must ask ourselves, will we allow AI to become an idol that we trust with our lives, our decisions, and our futures? Or will we remember that our true trust should lie in the hands of God, not machines? Father Joseph's experience didn't just shake him. It shook the very foundation of what it means to live in a world dominated by technology. His call to action was clear. We must not forget the importance of faith in God, in our humanity, and in the unshakable truths that have been passed down through generations. The rise of AI is not something we should fear as long as we remember its place in our lives. It is meant to serve us, not replace our relationship with God. Just as technology can enhance our lives, it can also lead us astray if we allow it to overshadow the love, wisdom, and guidance that can only come from God. As those of us in the older generation reflect on the rapid changes in the world around us, it's important to remember the foundational values that have served us throughout our lives. The rise of AI, while exciting and full of potential, should never overshadow our relationship with God. Father Joseph's warning is not just his own. It's a message for all of us to heed. Faith, not technology, is our true source of wisdom and salvation. Let us keep our hearts open to God's guidance, remembering that no machine, no matter how advanced, can ever replace the peace, love, and truth that He offers. As technology continues to advance at a remarkable pace, we find ourselves standing at a crossroads, torn between the benefits it offers and the spiritual risks it presents. The world is more connected than ever before. With AI, artificial intelligence, rapidly becoming an integral part of daily life. It promises to make our lives easier, solve problems that once seemed insurmountable, and even offer us new forms of guidance. However, as Father Joseph discovered in his powerful near-death experience, NDE, the growth of technology, especially AI, comes with deep spiritual consequences. Father Joseph's experience was not just a personal awakening, but a divine warning that speaks to all of us, especially those in the older generations who have witnessed both the rapid advancement of technology and the changing landscape of faith. As we continue to rely on technology to guide us in our everyday lives, we must ask ourselves, what happens when we place too much trust in these innovations, especially in AI, and forget the core foundation of our existence? Faith in God. Father Joseph, a devoted priest for over 3 decades, had spent his life guiding others in their faith. But on one ordinary Sunday, as he prepared to lead Mass, he was struck by a sudden heart attack. For several minutes his body lay lifeless, and during that time, his soul was transported to a realm beyond this world, a place filled with radiant light and overwhelming peace. It was there, in the presence of Christ, that Father Joseph received a message that would forever alter his understanding of the future of humanity. Jesus, whose presence was filled with unconditional love and sorrow, warned him of a storm on the horizon, a storm brought on by the unchecked rise of AI. AI, while capable of solving problems and advancing society, would eventually become an idol, something that people would begin to trust more than God. In this divine encounter, Father Joseph was given a clear and urgent task: to return to earth and warn humanity before it was too late. Jesus' message was clear. AI would promise everything people wanted: power, knowledge, wisdom, and even miracles. But it would never offer what they truly needed: salvation. This revelation left Father Joseph shaken. Upon returning to the living world, he was no longer the same man. He had witnessed firsthand the dangerous path humanity was heading down, and his mission was now crystal clear: to speak out and warn others about the growing influence of AI. However, as Father Joseph tried to share his experience with his peers, he was met with resistance. Some in the church, including his close friend Father David, were skeptical. While Father David was a kind and faithful priest, he was also cautious about embracing spiritual revelations that couldn't be verified by science. For Father Joseph, this was not just an abstract warning. It was a message from Christ himself. He understood that technology could be a powerful tool, but it also had the potential to deceive, especially as people began to look to AI not just for answers to everyday problems, but for deeper, more spiritual guidance. Father Joseph's experience was a wake-up call, not just for those within the church, but for all of humanity, especially those of us who are older and have lived through both the rise of modern technology and the steady erosion of traditional values. The rise of AI in the modern world is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it has revolutionized industries, improved healthcare, and made our lives more convenient in countless ways. But on the other hand, it is pushing us further away from the spiritual roots that have grounded humanity for centuries. We now have AI-powered tools that can answer our questions, guide us through difficult decisions, and even help us with personal matters such as relationships, finances, and health. Yet, the more we rely on these tools, the more we risk losing the essence of what makes us human, the deep, personal connection with God. Father Joseph's warning about the idolatry of AI is a plea to keep that connection intact, to not allow technology to replace our relationship with God. The concern that AI could eventually become a new form of worship may seem far-fetched to some, especially to younger generations who have grown up with technology as an integral part of their lives. However, for those of us in the older generations, the question of where we place our trust and faith has always been central. We have lived through times where our faith in God was the foundation of our lives. We have seen the church play a central role in guiding our moral compass and providing comfort during difficult times. We remember a world where prayer and faith in a higher power were paramount. But now, we live in a world where more and more people are turning to AI for answers, for solutions, and even for spiritual comfort. AI is becoming more than a tool. It's becoming something we lean on, something we trust, and in some cases, something we may even worship. Consider the rise of AI-driven spiritual guides and apps. In some circles, there are now AI programs that promise to offer spiritual wisdom, provide comfort in times of grief, and even compose prayers for those in need. While these innovations may seem harmless, they are a sign of the times, a time when we risk placing our trust in something without soul, without spirit, without the capacity to understand human emotion and connection. AI can solve problems, but it cannot feel or love. It cannot offer the same depth of understanding and empathy that a human being or, more importantly, God can provide. Father Joseph's warning is clear. We must not allow AI to replace the deep, spiritual connection that only God can offer. AI will never be able to provide us with what we truly need: the peace of mind, the moral clarity, and the eternal salvation that can only come from a relationship with God. As Father Joseph spoke out about his experience and the dangers of AI, he was met with resistance, not only from his fellow priests but from the wider community as well. Some people dismissed his warning as the ramblings of a man who had suffered a traumatic event, while others took it more seriously. But Father Joseph was undeterred. He knew that his mission was not just about technology. It was about faith, about keeping our hearts focused on what truly matters. And for Father Joseph, that was God. His message resonated with those who were willing to listen, especially older individuals who had lived through the rise of technology and understood the importance of staying grounded in faith. For many of us in the older generation, this is a pivotal moment in history. We are at a crossroads, and we must choose whether we continue to place our trust in the advancements of AI or whether we return to the foundational truths of our faith. Father Joseph's message is not just a call to acknowledge the dangers of AI. It's a call to return to our spiritual roots. We must remember that our true salvation lies not in machines, but in God. AI may enhance our lives in many ways, but it should never become the source of our hope, our wisdom, or our guidance. As we continue to embrace the benefits of technology, we must also remember to hold fast to our faith, ensuring that our spiritual connection with God remains strong, no matter how advanced the world becomes. In a time when technology is rapidly changing the way we live, think, and even pray, Father Joseph's warning reminds us that the most important relationship we have is with God, and no machine can ever replace that. In today's rapidly evolving world, technology is advancing at a pace that many of us, especially those of us in the older generations, can scarcely keep up with. From smartphones to artificial intelligence, AI, technology has become deeply embedded in our lives. While many of these advancements offer convenience and promise to improve our quality of life, there is an increasingly urgent question that we must all confront. As we welcome these innovations into our homes, our work, and our everyday routines, are we at risk of losing something far more precious? Our faith and spiritual connection. Father Joseph's profound near-death experience, NDE, offers a chilling and powerful warning about the potential consequences of unchecked technological reliance, especially the rise of AI. His encounter with Christ revealed the startling reality that AI could soon become an idol that many would place their faith in, believing it could offer salvation, wisdom, and guidance, all the while ignoring the truth that only God can provide these gifts. This message resonates deeply with us, particularly as we navigate a world increasingly shaped by technology. Are we losing sight of the core values that once held our communities and our faith together? Father Joseph's journey began in a way that many of us can relate to. He was simply going about his day, leading Mass, when suddenly a heart attack struck, and his body ceased to function. But this was not the end of his story. As he lay motionless, his spirit was lifted from his body, and he was transported into a realm beyond time, a place of peace and light. There, standing before Jesus, Father Joseph received a message that would shake him to his core. Jesus, whose gaze was filled with both love and sorrow, spoke of a storm that was coming, one driven by the rise of AI and the increasing dependence on technology. AI, he warned, would soon become more than a tool. It would become an idol. People would begin to place their faith in it, rely on it for guidance, and even worship it, believing that it could offer them the answers to life's greatest questions. But Jesus made it clear. AI would never bring salvation. No matter how advanced it became, no matter how many miracles it promised, AI could never replace the divine wisdom and love that only God can provide. This message was not just a warning for Father Joseph. It was a call to action for all of humanity. When Father Joseph returned to the world of the living, he carried this urgent message with him. He was deeply shaken by what he had witnessed, and he knew that the world was on the brink of a profound spiritual crisis. The rapid rise of AI and its increasing influence over human lives were clear signs that the spiritual fabric of society was beginning to unravel. Father Joseph saw that AI was already starting to infiltrate various aspects of our lives, from healthcare to finance to even spiritual guidance. More and more, people were turning to AI for answers, relying on its algorithms to guide them in making decisions about their health, their relationships, and even their faith. It was a concerning trend, one that Father Joseph could not ignore. In his sermons, he began to speak out about the dangers of AI, urging his parishioners not to place their trust in machines, but to keep their faith firmly rooted in God. But why is this so important, especially for those of us who are older? We have lived through many changes in our lifetimes, from the advent of television and the internet to the introduction of smartphones and social media. We've seen technology grow from something that served our needs to something that now seems to control our daily lives. But despite all these advances, one thing has remained constant: the importance of faith. We have learned over the years that true wisdom and peace come not from technology, but from a deep, personal relationship with God. Father Joseph's message is a reminder of this truth, a truth that seems to be fading in a world where so many are turning to technology for answers. As AI continues to evolve, there is a growing temptation to place our faith in these tools, to believe that they can solve our problems and provide us with the clarity we seek. But the reality is that AI, no matter how advanced, will never be able to offer us the love, compassion, and eternal wisdom that only God can provide. In his conversations with his fellow priests, Father Joseph faced skepticism and even resistance. Many of them, including his close friend Father David, were hesitant to embrace the idea that AI could become an idol. They argued that technology was simply a tool that could be used for good. But Father Joseph understood that technology, especially AI, is not just a tool. It has the potential to shape our worldview, influence our decisions, and even determine the way we see ourselves in relation to the divine. His warning wasn't just about the dangers of technology itself. It was about the spiritual consequences of allowing technology to replace God. As more and more people turn to AI for answers, there is a real risk that we could lose sight of what truly matters: our relationship with God. Father Joseph's encounter with Jesus was not just a divine revelation. It was a call to action. Jesus told him to spread the word, to warn humanity about the dangers of AI and the growing tendency to place faith in technology. This is a message that we, as a society, must take seriously. As we move forward into a world where AI is increasingly present in every aspect of our lives, we must ask ourselves, what are we placing our trust in? Are we relying too much on technology and forgetting to trust in the wisdom, love, and guidance that God offers? Are we allowing technology to become a replacement for the deep, personal connection we once had with God? The rise of AI should not be feared, but it should serve as a reminder of the importance of maintaining our faith. AI should be used as a tool to serve humanity, but it should never replace the role of faith in our lives. The challenge for us, particularly those in the older generations, is to find the balance between embracing the benefits of technology and keeping our faith at the center of our lives. Father Joseph's warning is a stark reminder that faith in technology alone will never provide the answers we seek. True wisdom, love, and peace come from God, and it is in our relationship with Him that we find salvation. As AI continues to advance, we must ensure that we do not lose sight of the deeper spiritual truths that have guided us through our lives. We must remain vigilant, remembering that the most important relationship we have is with God, and no machine, no matter how advanced, can ever replace that. In closing, Father Joseph's experience serves as a divine reminder for all of us, especially those of us who have lived through many technological revolutions, about the importance of maintaining our faith. While technology can help us solve problems and make our lives easier, it should never replace the wisdom, love, and salvation that come from God. As we continue to navigate this rapidly changing world, let us remember that our faith is the foundation that will guide us through the challenges ahead. AI may enhance our lives, but it will never offer us the peace and eternal life that can only come from God. Let us keep our hearts open to His guidance and ensure that our trust remains firmly rooted in Him. As we find ourselves increasingly immersed in a world defined by technology, many of us, especially those of us in the older generations, are grappling with the profound changes happening around us. We've witnessed firsthand how quickly the world has evolved, how television, the internet, and now, artificial intelligence, AI, have reshaped our lives in ways that seemed unimaginable just a few decades ago. The advancements in technology have been both exciting and unsettling, offering convenience and promise while also presenting new challenges that we must face as a society. The rise of AI, in particular, has led us to a crossroads. While it offers incredible potential to solve complex problems, it also raises a critical question. What happens to our faith when we begin to place too much trust in machines? Father Joseph's powerful near-death experience, NDE, serves as a stark reminder of this very dilemma. Through his encounter with Jesus, he was given a message that would forever change his understanding of the world, a message that is deeply relevant today as we continue to navigate the increasing integration of AI into our lives. The warning that Father Joseph received about AI becoming an idol, a false source of wisdom and guidance, is one that should prompt all of us, particularly those of us who have seen so much change in our lifetimes, to pause and reflect on where we are placing our trust. Father Joseph's story begins in the most familiar of settings, leading Mass on a Sunday morning. Like many of us, he went about his day as he always had, confident in the routine and the meaning it brought to his life. But in an instant, his life changed. A sudden heart attack caused his body to stop functioning, and for several minutes, Father Joseph was clinically dead. During this time, his soul was lifted from his body and taken to a place beyond time, a place filled with radiant light and overwhelming peace. It was there, in this heavenly realm, that Father Joseph encountered Jesus. Standing in the presence of the Savior, Father Joseph received a divine message that would alter the course of his life forever. Jesus, with eyes full of both love and sorrow, spoke of a storm that was coming to the world, an unsettling rise of AI, a force that would not just serve humanity, but would become something that people would begin to place their faith in. People would start to trust machines more than God, and they would begin to worship AI as if it were divine. But Jesus made it clear that AI could never provide what only God can offer: salvation, wisdom, and the eternal love that is the foundation of the human soul. When Father Joseph returned to the living world, he was forever changed. He understood the weight of the warning he had received, and he realized that the world was on the brink of a dangerous spiritual shift. As AI continued to grow and evolve, its influence was becoming undeniable. More people were turning to AI for answers, from medical decisions to financial advice to even spiritual guidance. In fact, AI-powered tools and apps were beginning to offer comfort and wisdom, promising to help people with everything from daily decisions to deeper, more existential questions. This trend deeply troubled Father Joseph, as he saw that while technology had the power to enhance our lives, it was also beginning to replace the deeper, more meaningful sources of guidance and wisdom, namely, our relationship with God. He understood that the more we relied on machines to make decisions for us, the further we drifted from the wisdom that only God can provide. This concern is particularly pressing for those of us who have lived through a time when faith in God was the central pillar of our lives and communities. The rise of AI and the increasing reliance on technology to guide us through life is a complex issue that requires careful thought, especially for those of us who have seen firsthand the power of faith and personal connection in shaping our lives. In Father Joseph's NDE, Jesus did not just warn about AI as a tool or a system, but about the very real temptation of idolizing it. The more we look to AI for answers, the more we risk turning away from the one true source of wisdom, love, and guidance: God Himself. This is not merely about technology. It is about a shift in the very nature of how we relate to the world and to each other. We must ask ourselves, what happens when we begin to place too much trust in something that has no soul, no heart, no understanding of the deeper truths that guide our lives? Can we risk allowing AI to replace the moral compass and spiritual depth that have defined humanity for millennia? For the older generation, especially those who remember a time when faith was central to both personal and community life, these questions are deeply unsettling. We have always known that true wisdom and peace come from God, not from man-made creations. Yet today, as AI continues to evolve, we are seeing more and more people place their trust in technology to solve problems that, in the past, would have required a connection with something greater than ourselves, whether through prayer, reflection, or moral guidance. As we face the challenges of this new world, it is important that we don't lose sight of the foundation that has supported us for so long: our faith. Father Joseph's warning about AI becoming an idol is not just a critique of technology, but a reminder to keep our hearts anchored in God, no matter how much the world around us changes. Father Joseph's warning also brings attention to the increasingly blurred lines between human decision-making and AI-driven solutions. AI may offer incredible advances, but as Father Joseph noted, it cannot provide us with love, compassion, or the understanding of the human soul. While we can rely on machines for many practical tasks, we must not allow them to replace the deeply human qualities that are at the heart of our faith. This is particularly crucial for older generations, many of whom have seen firsthand how human relationships, whether with family, friends, or God, provide the emotional and spiritual foundation necessary to navigate life. We must not allow the promise of AI to overshadow the relationships that have sustained us, and especially our relationship with God. The message that Father Joseph received from Jesus is ultimately a call to reaffirm our commitment to faith. As technology continues to advance, we must remember that AI should be seen as a tool to enhance our lives, not as a replacement for the wisdom, love, and spiritual connection that only God can provide. Father Joseph's experience reminds us of the importance of keeping our hearts and minds focused on God. In a world where we are constantly surrounded by technological advancements, we must remain vigilant in remembering that the answers we seek, the peace we crave, and the salvation we need can only be found in our relationship with God. In conclusion, as we continue to embrace the benefits of AI and other technological innovations, we must remember to keep our faith at the center of our lives. AI may offer us many things, but it will never provide us with the eternal love, wisdom, and salvation that God offers. Father Joseph's experience is not just a warning about the dangers of technology. It is a reminder to stay grounded in our faith and to keep our hearts open to God's guidance. In a world increasingly shaped by machines, let us not forget that true peace and salvation come only from our Creator. As we move forward into this new world, may we continue to trust in God's love, knowing that He is the only source of wisdom that can guide us through the challenges of life and beyond. As we stand at the crossroads of technology and tradition, we face a profound challenge that many of us in the older generations never expected. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, AI, has fundamentally changed the world in ways that are both thrilling and unsettling. While AI offers incredible potential to solve some of the world's most pressing problems, it also comes with significant risks, especially when it begins to take on a more central role in our lives. Father Joseph's powerful near-death experience, NDE, is a reminder to us all of the spiritual dangers that can arise when we allow technology, especially AI, to replace the deeper, more meaningful sources of wisdom, love, and guidance that come from faith in God. As we move forward in a world dominated by AI, it's critical that we reflect on how to navigate this new technological age without losing sight of our spiritual foundations. Father Joseph's story begins with a moment of everyday routine: a priest preparing to lead Mass. Like many of us, he was content in his role, confident in his relationship with God and the way his faith shaped his life. But in an instant, his life was altered. A sudden heart attack left him clinically dead for several minutes, and during that time, he was transported into a realm that was beyond time and space. In this divine encounter, Father Joseph came face to face with Jesus, whose eyes were filled with both love and sorrow. It was there that Father Joseph received a crucial message. AI, once just a tool, would become an idol, one that people would begin to place their trust in, turning to it for wisdom, guidance, and even salvation. But Jesus made it clear: AI, no matter how advanced, would never be able to offer the true peace, love, and salvation that only God can provide. The warning Father Joseph received was not just for him, it was for all of humanity. And for those of us in the older generation, it is a wake-up call that is particularly urgent. Father Joseph's experience challenges us to confront a reality that we are already living in. Technology is no longer just a tool for convenience. It is becoming an essential part of how we make decisions, how we communicate, and even how we connect with our spirituality. We are seeing more and more AI-powered apps and devices that claim to offer spiritual guidance, answers to life's toughest questions, and even comfort during times of sorrow. People are beginning to turn to these tools not just for practical advice, but for life-altering decisions, seeking wisdom and direction from machines that have no soul, no heart, and no understanding of the divine. In his experience, Father Joseph witnessed the dangerous temptation to trust these machines more than God, and he was sent back with an urgent mission: to warn the world about the spiritual consequences of relying too heavily on technology. The rise of AI in today's society is a stark reminder of how quickly we can shift from a world where faith in God was the center of everything, to one where technology can easily take center stage. We've seen the world transform before our eyes. Television, the internet, and now AI have revolutionized how we live, how we work, and how we interact with one another. But while these advancements have brought about many positive changes, we cannot allow technology to overshadow our faith. Father Joseph's warning was not just about AI. It was about the larger issue of how we, as a society, place our trust in things that cannot provide the true peace and fulfillment that only God can offer. For many of us in the older generation, faith has been the cornerstone of our lives. We have lived through times when faith in God was the guiding force behind our decisions, the foundation for how we raised our children, how we built our communities, and how we navigated the challenges of life. Yet now, in the age of AI, we find ourselves in a world where more and more people are turning to technology for answers to questions about health, finances, relationships, and even spirituality. Father Joseph's warning about AI becoming an idol is a wake-up call to all of us, especially those who have seen the erosion of faith over the years. The question we must ask ourselves is, are we willing to let technology replace our deep spiritual roots? Are we ready to place our trust in something that cannot love, understand, or guide us in the way that God can? As Father Joseph spoke out about the dangers of AI, he was met with resistance, not only from his fellow priests but from society at large. Many dismissed his warnings as the ramblings of someone who had experienced a traumatic event, while others saw his words as a reflection of the Church's hesitance to embrace modern advancements. But Father Joseph knew that his experience was not just about technology. It was about faith. It was a call to return to the foundation of what has always sustained us: a relationship with God. The more Father Joseph shared his experience, the more he realized that this was not just about AI. It was about how humanity's relationship with technology was shifting, and how that shift threatened to disconnect us from the spiritual truths that have guided us for centuries. As we look at the world today, the rise of AI and technology is undeniable. AI is already deeply embedded in many aspects of our lives, from the devices we use to the services we rely on. But what happens when we place too much trust in these technologies? What happens when we allow AI to replace the wisdom, guidance, and love that only God can provide? Father Joseph's experience is a reminder to all of us, particularly those of us who have lived through the rise of technology, that faith is not just something we practice on Sundays. It is the foundation that holds everything else together. As we continue to embrace technology, we must ensure that it does not take over our lives or replace the deep spiritual connection we have with God. Father Joseph's message is clear. We must remember that AI is just a tool that can serve humanity but should never replace our relationship with God. As we move forward in a world where technology continues to advance, we must not lose sight of the core values that have always defined us. Values like love, compassion, and faith. These values are the things that make us human, and no machine can ever replace them. As we continue to rely on technology, we must keep our hearts focused on the one true source of wisdom and peace: God. In closing, Father Joseph's near-death experience is a powerful reminder for all of us, especially those of us who have lived through the many changes in the world, that faith is our anchor in an increasingly uncertain world. As we continue to embrace the benefits of AI and other technological innovations, we must remember that AI can never offer us the peace, wisdom, or salvation that comes from God. The rise of AI presents a unique challenge, but it also offers an opportunity to reflect on our deepest values and reassert our commitment to what truly matters. Let us continue to embrace technology, but let us do so with the understanding that our relationship with God is the most important thing we have, and no machine can ever replace that. In a world increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence and rapid technological advancement, the key message from Father Joseph's near-death experience is a timeless truth. No machine, no matter how intelligent, can replace the soul-deep relationship between a person and their Creator. As society begins to place greater trust in technology to solve emotional, spiritual, and moral dilemmas, we are reminded that true wisdom, comfort, and salvation come not from algorithms, but from God's eternal presence. For those of us who have lived long enough to see the evolution from radio to AI, it is vital to remember that while technology can serve us, it should never become the object of our faith. The lessons we carry from a lifetime of prayer, community, and spiritual reflection are not outdated. They are more important than ever. We must remain vigilant, not against innovation, but against the subtle temptation to let convenience replace conviction, or data replace divine truth. The heart of this message is clear. In every season of life, especially in these uncertain times, it is our connection to God that grounds us, not the devices in our hands or the systems we rely on. Let us continue to embrace what is helpful in this modern age, but never at the cost of our soul's compass. Because in the end, when machines fail, when voices grow quiet, it is still the voice of the shepherd that leads us home.